Men are taught from a very young age the opposite of what he's claiming with this vague narrative of society. Men are taught it's okay to be soft and tender, express emotions. Men typically don't want to do that. What men like to do when they express emotions is go, this sucks. I'm upset. I'm going to try to channel that in a way that's more productive. They don't like it when you do that because that implies a threat to, frankly, their established power structure. Men getting together and going, this is wrong. I want to change it. And so here's an interesting phenomenon. Look at Jordan Peterson. This guy was teaching at a university in Canada, all of a sudden becomes an overnight sensation. Now he speaks to sold-out arenas, all throughout the world. Sold-out arenas all throughout the world, and he's teaching young men not to embrace their emotions and whine, but rather get it together, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And his audience is overwhelmingly male. Why is that resonating with young men? Or guys like Andrew Tate. He goes viral overnight telling men, you have to get it together. You have to be better. Contrast this with the self-help literature for women. If you've ever thumbed through one of these, it really is a sobering experience, boys. All of their rhetoric is not, you need to do this. You need to be taking cold showers. You suck. Get better. And guys are like, yes. You read the ones that are written for women, it's all like, you deserve to feel like you matter, and you deserve to feel this, and you are entitled to this, which is great. That is what women need to hear, but let's not pretend that these two things are the same. Like we mentioned with their depression, women feel more depressed when they feel like they are not able to contribute to the well-being of those around them. Men feel depressed when we feel like, I don't know what they're doing, but like, I know I'm screwed, and there's no way out of this, and that's just the reality of our situation. And I think that if maybe how much time do I have? Oh, okay, we'll do it. My tight 15, right, my open mic. If you had situations where all of a sudden people were coming out with this new idea of like, guys, what if we could just like cry? Why would you then not see that overnight viral sensation with people who hadn't heard that and gone, wait a minute, this one guy is talking about that, I'm going to follow that. If it were really true that there's this big monopoly of Jordan Peterson's being like, don't cry, man up, you'd expect someone like Hunter Avallone to come onto the scene and be like, actually, you can cry. And then all of a sudden, he would be speaking to sold-out arenas. But this just isn't the case. There is a monopoly, as evidenced by those who break through as dissenting voices, all of a sudden basically achieving like the entire market share because it just doesn't exist. Because men are taught now that they're supposed to embrace their feelings and be sad, and that's okay. And women are taught that like, well, you're supposed to be more assertive and less agreeable and things like that. And this is fine. Men can be like that. Women can be like that. But ultimately, it is against our nature. And when we start LARPing as these like androgynous freaks, we're less likely to get married. Sure, if the economic prospects were fixed, you'd see more marriages, but it cannot be understated that men know that the state of the modern woman is not so good. And women definitely know that the state of the modern man is also not so good. I mean, the average modern man is like this overweight, porn-addicted slob, and you're like, where's my trad wife? And it doesn't exist. And moreover, the average woman, the birth control, the SSRIs, she's just like all over the place. That's why these social trends through the sexual revolution, by the way, that's inarguable, that's a consensus, that these things have happened, and that is bad. So we actually do have in our power to make the world a better place. We can undo that conditioning. We can undo that propaganda. When me and my cool friends take power, we will.
You have 5 minutes.
All right, so I think that you said something like men are taught to be in touch with their feelings and talk about their feelings. I recognize that colloquially, emotions and feelings are used interchangeably. I use them interchangeably before, too. However, there actually is a difference between feelings and emotions. So emotions specifically refer to, and John, you're going to love this, a biological response, actual brain chemistry that responds to certain things. This is why sadness is one of the fundamental emotions, whereas anger is actually a secondary emotion. It is still a real emotion, but it's largely because it comes from an underlying foundational emotion. Feelings, on the other hand, are purely conscious. These are things, yes, that you feel in your head, you think about, there's not a biological response. So is there a time and a place to be open and vulnerable about your emotions? Yes, of course. I am not saying that men should just be crying every day, all day, any chance they get. Neither should women. Everybody should have a grasp and control over their emotions. But That's called emotional intelligence. And part of being emotionally intelligent is also recognizing the time and the place where it is appropriate to be vulnerable, whether it's with friends or a partner, where it is okay to cry and express sadness. This should not be something that is always looked down upon. It should not be something that men are expected to be stoic at all times. These are harmful ideals. They lead to, I know I've already said this, but they lead to repressing emotions, and that increases likelihood of suicide, mental health problems, etc. You also talk about how a lot of the institutions are against this idea or the ideas of masculinity that you're pushing for because masculine men are sort of a threat to the institutions. I don't know where you're getting this from because especially throughout the past 100 years or so, every massive threat to the institutions or the mainstream has been people vocalizing their problems. So if you want to talk about MLK, he challenged the institutions at the time, and that was done vocally. That was not done because he had some physical, muscular strength or because he was suppressing his emotions. That didn't happen. People have risen to power time and time again through rhetoric and through being able to win over a crowd rather than being the most muscular, tall, buff dude who's never emotional. You also mentioned earlier, not in the thing you just said, but beforehand, you talked about men sometimes will feel depressed because they fail to... You missed me also, I don't know.
Let's go.
But you also said earlier that like maybe men feel depressed if they're not providing because they're failing to live up to this role, and maybe I know you didn't say maybe they should feel depressed, but you said maybe they feel this way because yeah, they are failing. We decide what these roles are for men. We have decided that the role is going to be for you as a man to be the primary breadwinner. This does not necessarily have to be the role for a man. So it sounds almost like what you said earlier there that almost kind of proves my point, that when you fail to meet or live up to these arbitrary roles, you worsen your own mental well-being. You raise the likelihood of divorce. And I don't know why you would be in favor of any of that. Now, let me see if there's anything else I have here. At the end of the day, I just think it's really important to, again, recognize that biology is real. There's a difference between males and females. Anybody claiming otherwise is delusional. There is a difference between males and females. However, we are not a slave to our biology. We are not a slave to evolution. And women, when they are forced in these roles that are usually seen as more natural for their biology, do not always do well. Because it's the enforcement that is the problem. It's not necessarily the gender roles that are the problem.